Welcome to Kansas Ag Report. I'm Ken Rogers. On this week's program, we head to Rooks County. Talk with Dan Atkisson. He's the president of the National Sorghum Producers. We'll get his first take on this next round of market facilitation program payments and what growers are expecting from Congress for the rest of the year. We'll also have features from Kansas corn, Kansas wheat, the Kansas Farm Bureau, and our weekly updates from the Kansas Livestock Association and Paragon Ag Advisors. The Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots organization representing the state's farmers and ranchers since 1919. KFB.org. Kansas Wheat Commission, leading in the adoption of profitable innovations for wheat. Online, kswheat.com. And Kansas Corn, building the future of Kansas corn. Online, kscorn.com. In agricultural news from agview.net, sign-up is now open for the market facilitation program. It will assist farmers who continue to suffer from damages because of trade retaliation from foreign nations. USDA will provide up to $14.5 billion in direct payments to impacted producers, part of a broader trade relief package that was announced late last month. Now, the sign-up period runs through December 6th. The MFP payments will be made to producers of certain non-specialty and specialty crops, as well as dairy and hog producers. MFP assistance for 2019 crops based on a single county payment rate multiplied by a farm's total planting to the MFP eligible crops in the aggregate in 2019. Now, those per acre payments not dependent on which of those crops are planted in 2019. A producer's total payment eligible plantings cannot exceed the total 2018 planting, though. View payment rates by county at farmers.gov if you'd like. Dairy producers who were in business as of July 1st will receive a per hundredweight payment on production history, and hog producers will receive a payment based on the number of live hogs that were owned on a day selected by the producer between April 1st and May 15th of this year. Payments will be made in 3 rounds, with the second and third rounds evaluated as market conditions and trade opportunities dictate. Now, if conditions warrant, the second and third rounds will be made in November, then early January next year. Again, sign up open until December 6th. More information can be found by contacting your local Farm Service Agency office or online at farmers.gov/MFP. Well, before they went on their August break, the Senate Committee on Agriculture held a hearing looking at perspectives around reauthorizing the Grain Standards Act. Brian Lennon, a wheat farmer from Goodland, testified on behalf of the National Association of Wheat Growers on the importance of reauthorizing the Grain Standards Act. Lynn also serves as a board member for U.S. Wheat Associates and works for Frontier Ag. He said a properly functioning grain inspection system is critical, and he's urging Congress to reauthorize the Grain Standards Act this year. Despite the significant impacts of tariffs on exports, U.S. wheat has maintained some competitiveness in the international market, in part thanks to the advantage of premium international buyers place on the U.S. grain inspection system. He said, given the current uncertainty in those trade agreements and many of the bearish factors working against U.S. wheat exports, it's critical, he said, to maintain one of the key advantages. Foreign and domestic customers value an independent agency certifying shipments to meet the grade requirements of contracts, Lennon said. Well, you can find more ag news at agview.net. Stay with us. We'll have more coming up. Agriculture information on your computer or mobile device. News and views on grains, livestock, policy, and opinions from newsmakers can be found by liking AgView on Facebook, and on Twitter, follow AgView News, a reliable and relevant source. agview.net. Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Oldie Seed Farms, carrying soil-specific seed. Find them on the web, oldieseed.com. That's OHLDE seed.com. Kansas Livestock Association, supporting members' business interests and meeting consumer demands. KLA.org. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail, keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. grassandgrain.com. And Kansas Grain Sorghum, growers working together. More at ksgrainsorghum.org.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas Corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
What if U.S. soybean oil were an industry sensation? If end users started asking for it by name? That future is here. The time is now. To meet customer demands, the Soybean Checkoff is investing in varieties that produce oil with increased functionality. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Well, we are in Rooks County, outside of Stockton, almost the Rooks-Graham County line once again, talking with Dan Atkisson, who is the president of the National Sorghum Producers. Dan, want to get your take, just now a few days away. Sign-up has begun on this latest market facilitation program. What are your thoughts, especially when it comes to sorghum and maybe the overall for all the farm commodities?
Yeah, I think it was interesting to see the rollout of this program. MFP 2.0 is going to be a little bit different than it was last year. So, I think from the sorghum producers' point of view, I think we feel like our sorghum producers were well represented. When we begin to look at the payment rates per acre rather than by the bushel, it sure looks like sorghum growers in this area will be getting maybe even a touch higher payments than they did a year ago.
Have you had a good indication of the formula, the way it was done, and the way maybe sorghum was treated a little better than it was in the first round?
So far we haven't got that information. USDA's promised to have that out soon, but all they've really announced right now is just the numbers, the dollar figures per acre by county.
So you were in D.C. not too long ago meeting with the president on the USMCA, but was this situation talked about more? Did you kind of have an inkling of what may happen, or did this all kind of come at the last minute when we knew what the county rates would be?
Really at that point it was just a dollar figure. It was the billions of the $16 billion figure, and at that point we had no idea how it was going to be distributed or whether it was going to be on planted acres, base acres. At that point there was really no formula. So we've gotten a little closer, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks USDA will get us those numbers and we'll kind of get a better idea of where all the payments are coming from and how the formula was created.
Well, we know the spring and early summer was pretty ideal for growing sorghum, but in the last couple of weeks, most of the region has not seen a lot of precipitation. Any reports from maybe down south how things are and things here in your area?
Sorghum is grown all the way from the very tip of Texas all the way up through the Dakotas. The South Texas guys have already begun harvesting their crop, and a lot of that crop's already out of the field. Yields down there were good. Sugarcane aphid pressure was very low, so those guys had a much better crop than they did a year ago. Crop conditions throughout, the high plains are good. I think they're deteriorating pretty rapidly depending on the area. Here in Rooks and Graham counties, we're getting really, really dry, so our fall crops are really needing a drink of water.
We're talking with Dan Atkisson, who is the president of the National Sorghum Producers. We're on his farm in Rooks County, and we'll be back with more in just a moment. Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots organization representing the state's farmers and ranchers since 1919. KFB.org. Kansas Wheat Commission, leaders in the adoption of profitable innovations for wheat. And AgView.net, covering news and views in the Beef Belt and Western Corn Belt. Reliable and relevant, AgView.net.
Hello, I'm Dr. Frank Lyons from Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center here in Manhattan, Kansas. Daryl was one of our patients that we did about 7 months ago.
I dug trees by hand for years and years and years. In the process, I wore out my rotator cuff. But when I learned about this process, I thought if there's a way to get rid of this pain, then I want to do it. So we did it, and it worked. I'm not going to go out and dig trees with a shovel anymore, but I can do the things that I want to do now.
Well, it's been very gratifying to help people with their painful joints and other entities, and it's been especially gratifying to be able to help people who I know and have worked with and known for many years.
You don't have to be a farmer or rancher to become a Kansas Farm Bureau member. Anyone can join. As a member, you'll get discounts on things like hotels and entertainment, health and wellness services, cell phone plans, and more. You'll also strengthen the lives of your fellow Kansans and help build strong, prosperous communities through agriculture advocacy and education. Join us today. Visit kfb.org/join to learn more.
Many seed companies claim to offer the latest genetics, but how many have tested those genetics in soils just like yours? The Oldie Seed Know to Grow research program has fully tested the latest seed genetics in soils that are right in your neighborhood. The Oldie Seed Know to Grow program can recommend the best performing hybrids from technologies like Enlist, Extend, and Liberty Link that will optimize the yield and profit of every acre on your farm. Contact Oldie Seed today.
And welcome back. Dan Atkisson, farmer from Rooks County, is joining us. He is the president of the National Sorghum Producers. In fact, we're on his farm here at the Rooks Graham County line. And Dan, Congress is on their August break, but we understand the work is continuing. You may be getting closer to USMCA vote by the time they come back this fall.
Yeah, that's the sounds of things that House Ag Committee and the Democrats will be working on some USMCA details throughout the August recess. So hopefully by the time September rolls around, maybe we've got a little bit more action can be taken at that point.
China, Japan, the EU, the UK, boy, we could do all kinds of initials. There's a lot of things left to be done for trade. Do you think any of them will get accomplished before, I guess, the silly season of elections starting next year?
Yeah, I think that was pretty accurate, that we really need to make a push to get some of these trade issues resolved before we get into an election cycle. I still remain hopeful that we can get something done with China. We can get something done with Japan. Of course, the Japanese market doesn't affect sorghum a lot, but obviously the Chinese market is a big deal for us as well. But, wheat, beef, we raise both of those here as well. So, definitely Mexico, with UMCA, Mexico imports a lot of our wheat from here in Kansas. That would be important. Beef going into Japan is going to be another big thing that would impact this farm. Well,
and the bottom line is a lot of those are also, many of them are feeding more sorghum as well and growing those animal protein.
Yeah, absolutely. So a rising tide raises all ships. So, any export we can get, even though the wheat that's raised on this farm might not go to Japan, there's a lot of wheat in the Pacific Northwest that goes over that direction. So, that would help out our wheat market here as well.
Now, one thing we haven't talked about with you for a while is ethanol, and we see where we are with corn prices. There's maybe a little trepidation there. Some other plants are looking at continuing to use sorghum. We know sorghum acres are down as well, but it looks like you're pretty optimistic that we'll make sure that we use all the sorghum either for ethanol or feed.
Yeah, and that's something that Team Sorghum as a whole, but mainly the Checkoff program has really been working on to work with ethanol plants throughout the Midwest who traditionally don't use sorghum, to get them to put out a sorghum bid. When we had some plant acres where corn or soybeans didn't get planted through the I-states, we had a lot of interest in growing sorghum in those areas. If you have sorghum in that area, you got to find a way to find an end user for it. So there was a lot of education and outreach that went on through the checkoff side of things to help those producers out.
All right, Dan, we appreciate it. We know you got lots more work to do, so if we don't hurry up, you're going to put me to work. So thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me, Ken.
Dan Atkisson, farmer from Rooks County, president of the National Sorghum Producers, joining us here this morning. Stay with us. More coming up.
What if sustainability were synonymous with U.S. soy? If energy efficiency, water quality, and soil health help define U.S. soy's value, that future is here. The time is now. To meet end-user demands, the Soybean Checkoff is committing to sustainability that's achievable, worthwhile, and enduring. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
So we at Kansas Corn are excited to be back on the road, and we've been down in Cherokee County in Columbus for our first district listing tour stop, and we'll be in all of 8 other districts across the state. Between our next one will be on Monday the 12th, and then we keep rolling all the way through the end of the month. So we have stops everywhere from Spring Hill at the Gettermans, where we will also be doing a soil health field day. Prior to that, we'll also be in Hiawatha, then we'll be down in south central Kansas, close to Edwards County, and Belpre, close to Maxville. Then we'll be in Goodland, northwest, over then down to Hugoton, then over to Phillipsburg. We also have a stop in Arnold, close to Ness City, and finish in Abilene. So these listening tours, our whole goal is to go out and listen to farmers. What do they want us to do? What are the policies that we need to be concerned about, because that's what's affecting their farm? And how are we investing their checkoff? We want to hear feedback, we want to hear input, and we take that all to our leaders that'll then make decisions for the next year. So it's important. We invite everybody out. They're all 6 to 8 in the evening, and we will feed them dinner and have refreshments, lots of good conversation, and hopefully a little bit of learning along the way.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas Corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
The Kansas Association of Wheat Growers will hold its annual membership meeting on August 14th in conjunction with High Plains Journal's Sorghum U, Wheat U event. The annual meeting will begin at 7 a.m. in the Fire Club room at the Kansas Star Events Center in Mulvane. Grower members will discuss and debate the policies of the Kansas Association of Wheat Growers and will vote on renewing COG resolutions. They will hear an update on COG activities and priorities, as well as the announcement of a membership referral program that can earn members some unique wheat gear while building grassroots support for the issues facing wheat farmers in Topeka and on Capitol Hill. At the conclusion of the COG annual meeting, members are invited to join other wheat and grain sorghum producers to stay for the Sorghum U, Wheat U educational event, which features breakout sessions on grain sorghum and wheat. There's no charge to attend Sorghum U, Wheat U event, and lunch will be provided. Registration begins at 8:30 with the program starting at 9. During the welcome session, attendees will hear from a panel of farmers, as well as the Kansas Wheat and Kansas Grain Sorghum organizations. Over lunch, Arlen Suderman, Chief Commodities Economist with FC Stone, will present the keynote address on market intelligence for the future. Market intelligence helps producers plan ahead for influences on grain markets that are out of a producer's control. For more information on the speakers and topics, and to register for this free event, go to wheatu.com.
Kim Mannering with Hardy Insurance. Today we will talk about employee safety and work comp coverage. On your farm, do you ask your friends to come help? Are they considered employees or neighbors helping neighbors? Did you know that you can be held responsible just as if it's a work comp accident? Give me a call. We can discuss. 316-945-6733.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
We had some questions about a topic that was changed or updated, I guess, during the last legislative session. So tell us what the topic is and give us some of the background, if you wouldn't mind.
Absolutely. Thanks, Megan. Like she said, we've had a lot of questions, and we've been sharing information and updated people throughout the session about a bill that came up relating to ATV and UTV use on roadways. And current statute didn't allow for this up until this last session. So a bill came up, and in its final form, it was Senate Bill 63, and it was passed and signed for the governor. And what it did is it allows for the use of ATVs and UTVs on state and federal highways, but there's a couple specific restrictions. First and foremost, it has to be for agricultural purposes, and it allows for two things. These producers, these operators, to use their ATV or their UTV first to cross a state or federal highway, and also it specifically states that an ATV or UTV can be used on to go down a state or federal highway, but there are a couple very specific restrictions with that. The first of those restrictions is that the operator of this ATV or UTV must be a licensed driver, and they must be operating under the restrictions of their license. Secondly, that state or federal highway must have a posted speed limit of 65 miles per hour or less. And then third, this ATV or UTV must be operated as far to the right of the roadway as practicable, unless the operator is making or is preparing to make a left turn. So hopefully that provides just a little bit of clarification on what this bill, now current statute, actually allows for. It doesn't just open it up for any use of ATV or UTVs on the highways. It is very specific to agricultural purposes, and then those operators must be operating within those restrictions.
Premier Farm and Home has what you need to make your lawn the best in the neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Ken. We choose Premier Farm and Home for the professional look that we do ourselves.
Feel free to stop in. You can also visit our website at heycow.com.
Fort Wallace was the fightingest fort in the West. Fossils, Indians, soldiers, scouts, wagons, trails, pioneers, stories. Discover the story of Fort Wallace and the people who served here, the people who fought here, the people who settled here. Wallace County, where the past is present.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture, represents grassroots agriculture. The state's largest and most powerful farm organization stands up for its members through leadership development, agriculture education, legal defense, environmental advocacy, farm safety, and risk management. Members also enjoy money-saving benefits. To join our organization today or to learn more, go to www.kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
The Kansas Department of Agriculture Division of Animal Health is encouraging livestock owners to be aware and take precautions to minimize the potential of animals contracting the vesicular stomatitis virus. Officials said particular attention should be given to animals commingling at competitions and similar events. Multiple cases have been confirmed in Texas, Colorado, and New Mexico. There have been no cases of VSV reported in Kansas. VSV primarily affects horses, but cattle, sheep, goats, swine, llamas, and alpacas also are susceptible. Symptoms are fever and the formation of blister-like lesions on the mouth, nostrils, ears, hooves, and teats. Infected animals may refuse to eat and drink. There are no USDA-approved vaccines for VSV. The primary method of transmission is biting insects like black flies, sand flies, and midges. It also can be spread by nose-to-nose contact between animals. The Department of Animal Health has implemented enhanced import requirements from the affected regions to prevent the spread of VSV into Kansas. Any person who suspects animals may have the virus should contact their local veterinarian or state animal health official, as VSV is considered a reportable disease in Kansas.
Many seed companies claim to offer the latest genetics, but how many have tested those genetics in soils just like yours? The Oldie Seed Know to Grow research program has fully tested the latest seed genetics in soils that are right in your neighborhood. The Oldie Seed Know to Grow program can recommend the best performing hybrids from technologies like Enlist, Extend, and LibertyLink that will optimize the yield and profit of every acre on your farm. Contact Oldie Seed today.
Kim Mannering with Hardy Insurance. Today we will talk about umbrella coverage. Did you know that if your cattle get out, you could be held liable for that? Call me. Let's have a discussion. 316-945-6733.
Good morning. I'm Derek Hermish with Paragon Ag. How will you remember 2019? Since my birth in 1981, there are only 2 years where the weather is the overwhelming memory of that year being the reason I remember it. Those years, 1993 and 2012. Now, most farmers could probably list off a few more years of weather recognition. When your livelihood is tied to the weather, it tends to leave more of a mark. I've seen that for myself since being in this profession for the last 8 years. I could tell you what the weather has been like for the most part in the last 8 growing seasons, but I would be much more accurate in describing to you exactly how the grain markets performed in those same years. Like the weather years of 1993 and 2012, the items I remember from the last 8 years are the times that were the most dramatic in the markets. And when I say dramatic, I really mean awful. Sure, we remember the good times, but we tend to have vivid recollections of the bad. Anytime the market moves up, whatever you've sold was too much, and when the market moves down, you've never sold enough. I'm not alone with these memories turned scars, and the wise ones learn from their mistakes, while also realizing that you can't control everything. The final chapter of 2019 has not been written yet, and how you remember it will not only be determined by the weather, but also by the marketing decisions you make. The current story is in shades of gray, nothing in black and white. If you think you know how the story ends, be careful you don't end up with a scar for a memory when the ink dries. I'm Derek Hermish. Have a good day.
Well, that's our show this week. Be social with us online at kansasagreport.net. Like us on Facebook, Kansas Ag Report Television Show, and follow us on Twitter at Kansas Ag Report. I'm Ken Rogers. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.